Welcome back, everybody. After doing my prep on this, on the next guest that you see in front of you, I walked away with basically three things. Number one is I need to get back to writing, and I need to do it right now. Number two is I finally have somebody who understands what it means to hustle, because I have to explain it to people. I certainly do not have to explain it to Adam. And third is no matter how successful you are or influential you are or what you have achieved in life, you can still remain a good person. And those are my three main takeaways. I want to know what yours are when we're done. Welcome to the program, executive producer, showrunner, writer, Adam Glass.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Alan. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And again, in my naivete, when I met you the first time, I took a workshop from Sherry Shaw. It was a Power Hour workshop where I got a chance to kind of see you audition a few people. I was one of those, and I didn't know much about you. I just knew that okay, well, the guy obviously knows something about actors and running them, and I thought, really good guy, just kind of a nice human being. I want to talk to him more. And that's why I reached out. I wanted to talk to you more and ask some questions. And then I started doing research and I figured out who you are and what you have done. So, I'm glad I go on instinct sometimes.
I appreciate it. Yeah, listen, it's something that I said, first of all, Sherry's amazing. What a great
Yeah.
human being in person. I've known her for over 20 years. It's something we talked about a little bit, is you come up with people, the people that you meet along the way and the friends you make and the relationships are super important. So mad love to Sherry. And so glad I got to meet you and so many of your classmates who I just thought so much. That's the thing that excites me all the time. So much talent out there. And so excited that the future is going to be in good hands. We got a lot of great actors coming up.
I think so too. So let's fill people in just in case they do not know about you. Let's kind of back up and see where it started. You were born in Decatur, Georgia, but you spent a lot of your youth in New York. You're wearing a Yankees cap. I'm a Chicagoan. I still can't believe we gave you Glaber Torres. I'm really.
I love him. Oh my God. He's so amazing. He's so amazing. We let Didi go. I mean, it goes to show you. I mean, he's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take it from there. So you grew up in New York. We have another thing in common, right? I came from the former Soviet Union. Your grandfather came from the former Soviet Union. So there's that connection. As a matter of fact, everybody on the show this week, it just happened that way. Everybody has some connection to Russia. It's pretty cool. So you went to school for theater, and then you found your way to LA, but it was for a different reason. Can you get us in there?
Oh, just go back from the beginning. I always feel like, and this is super important because I feel like, part of what we all do, actors, writers, everything like that. I always say, what's your brand? Who are you? What are you? What are you selling? What's your story? You've heard some of this stuff, but, I'm like the guy in Ratatouille, it's like everyone can, cook, and people get so mad because I'm like, everyone has a storyteller, everybody can write. Who has the discipline to do it is a whole other story, because what we do is a craft as much as it is an art. And I think that, I look back at my life and, all the things that would have seemingly been things that could have hurt me actually helped me when I think I got to Hollywood, because, I was born in Georgia, raised in New York, didn't know my dad till I was 14 years old. When I was raised in a Jewish Russian home by my bubby and my mom, no men in my life for the most part. I mean, a little bit here and there, I had some influences, but for the most part, just raised by women. I had a joke, I was raised by Hannah and her sisters, between my mom and my aunts and everything like that. So, it was always like, it's funny. It was like, my wife said I came well-trained by the time she got me. So she still had some stuff to do. Trust me. There was a lot of work still yet to be done to get me full on. So at 14, I went down to Georgia and I met my real father, who was in jail. And so the first time I met my dad was in prison, and, totally different than my family. he was not the greatest guy, but his family was amazing, the Doran family. So I inherited instantly this amazing family in Georgia, and then start to spend my summers and my holidays down there. And like being a New York Jew, and then all of a sudden being in the deep South, was like so different. So I always joke that I'm a little bit of a Jew-billy because I got a little of both. I got that Southern flavor in me, but I'm a New Yorker through and through, heart to heart. So that helped, I think, not just identify who I was, but give me a different life experience so that when I came out here and I started to write and I started to get into writing rooms, so to your point, like I went actually to school for theater. And then sophomore year, I actually left. I went to SUNY Albany for 2 years and I came out to LA and for a year and did stand-up comedy. I just wanted to sort of have a different experience. And I was lucky. I got out here in like 88, 89. And that's where you're supposed to go, no, you're not that old. No way.
We'll rewind that. We're going to cut that out. We're not that old. But
what? No way. 88, 89. Were you even born yet, Alan?
The first thought, because that specific date has a very resonance in my mind, because 89 is when I came to the United States. I was 14 years old. So
see, you don't look that old, Alan. I didn't think that. Look at you.
Thank you.
So I got out here and like it was a great time. I went to the comedy store. I didn't know anybody. I was like, I got to see Sam Kinison and I got to see, Pryor, and I got to see Robin Williams, and I got to see so many great comedians. But I realized very quickly that was a world that I enjoyed, but I didn't want to be part of, comedians and sort of behind the scenes. It's really dark, and I just wanted some light in my life. And, I didn't want to turn around and sort of go down the dark. So I went back to Brooklyn College and I was a theater and film major. And very lucky, I got to work with F. Murray Abraham, and I got to take poetry classes with Ginsberg. And, like people don't realize how amazing Brooklyn College is. And I was bartending and putting myself through school. And then I made this independent movie that basically got a lot of attention. And it was a short that I made. And I remember coming out here for the New York Student Academy Awards. The something Academy Awards, Student Academy Awards, and like just getting creamed. I think I made my film for like $5,000, and like the opening shot with some USC grad students, like, Lou McCrane shot at the Chateau Marmont. And I was like, but I remember having this agent, Jeff Fields, say to me like, hey, you need to move out here. And, and I was like, I'm a New Yorker, I'm an independent filmmaker, like, no. And I went back to New York, and like after another shitty winter, I was like, I'm out of here, man. So I came to LA and thinking that I was gonna get signed by William Morris, and then, only to show up and them say, like, do you have a script? Do you have it? I was like, oh. So at that point I had been writing like short stories mostly, and not really. So I just picked up a book and I started reading other scripts, and I just started writing. And I always say this, when I first got to LA, it's that story, you've heard it before. I lived in my car. I didn't know anybody. I just met people. I think I showed up with like $500 in my pocket, like just like no money. And, you're young, you got nothing to lose. If I went back to the Bronx, I would have been an electrician, and, nothing against all the electricians out there. My whole family, local 3 IBW, nothing but love for the brotherhood, but wasn't my goal. I wanted more. I didn't want to work with my hands. So I came out here and I just started to, hustle and meet people and write and script after script after script. And it took me about 4 years before finally there was some interest, and a manager wanted to sign me, an agent, Sandy Weinberg, who was at the time an innovative artist. And that really changed my life. But it took about 4 years, hand to mouth, just, beating the pavement, trying to find and meet people to finally get to that place where someone was like, hey, I think you have some talent.
Yeah. What is that, again, that after 4 years, was that all about the Andersons? Was that the first show that got picked up with Anthony, or it was?
No, I was a feature guy. So I was actually writing movies. Okay. And for a little bit had a partner, like anything. I was trying to just find my way and navigate it all. And then actually I wrote a script that, with a partner at the time called Killin' Time. And that really sort of put us on the map. And then that was super interesting. But yeah, so that like I had written the script, and it's funny. I remember I had to go paint a house to make money in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then, young guy, met a girl. Next thing you know, 3 months went by, and then I came back, and I remember there was the guy Laurent, who was actually now Steven Spielberg's, like, he runs his personal library, and he had read the script before I left, and he's like, "Where have you been?" That's my bad French accent. And he's like, this is like, and I just said, "We were in San Francisco painting a house." He's like, "Everyone loves your script and they want to sign you." And this is also during the Tarantino time. So I think there was a Tarantino-esseness to the script that people loved. It was two hitmen, one black from Harlem and one Irish from the Westies. And they get sent separately by their boss to kill the same Puerto Rican guy in Lower East Side. And they show up and he's not there. And it's like theater of the absurd. It's like Ibsen. They end up in this like Mexican standoff with each other. And the whole movie takes place in this one room. And then all these other people showing up looking for this guy. And they have to either kill them or figure out ways to like get around and yet keep their guns trained on each other. And then Russell Simmons bought it for his death films. And it was like, it really like, and then, you think you've made it. You're in the, like, you're in the trades and like everybody's calling you for jobs. And then, like you realize anything, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And then, like, how do you survive and how do you last and how do you make things happen? So I was doing that stuff. And then my partner and I broke up, and then, you're constantly reinventing yourself constantly, because when you break up with a partner, you basically, nobody knows who was doing the writing. Like, was it you? Was it him? Was it equal? So you then have to prove yourself all over again. I've had to do that 2 or 3 times in my career where I've been like, hit a place and I've had to reinvent myself. And that's just the nature of the business, and that's the good news about writing scripts. I tell people every time you write a script, you're writing a lottery ticket. You just don't know what's going to happen, So, anytime somebody's like, "Oh, I'm stuck in a rut, I'm stuck in a hole," I'm like, go write something. Like go. It's like, it's what I loved about Hamilton, right? It's like he wrote himself out of everything. It's like I so related to that. I was like, yeah, I was poor. We grew up on welfare, and I was able to write my way out of all those things. I sometimes look at my life and my family, and I just feel unbelievably blessed. And it's all because of writing, which again is another crazy thing. When you go around the world and you talk to people, you realize, like, what are writers? Who 1% of the writers in the world make a living, like writing? That's amazing. Like I tell all the time, any writers, staff writer, anybody, I'm like, you're making a living writing. We're not digging ditches. Like we're getting paid to sit in a room and tell stories and think about our ideas. We are the luckiest people in the world.
Sure, it's an amazing opportunity. Let's circle back to Anthony. I think that's a fascinating story, and again, just reinforces that it's not about kind of going out there and networking. It's about building a community. And I think Anthony Anderson was one of the first people that you've met in LA, one of your first friends. Tell that story, because I find it.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of gave away the ending. I love selling this idea, which is like, I met. I had the guy I decided to come out and start writing with was a mutual. His mutual friend was a young guy who was working at Ticketmaster. And one night they were all roommates at Howard University, and his name was Kenny Gamble. And Kenny and I met at IFC in New York City. He was a talented young filmmaker, and we decided to team up and do a couple of things together, and then come out here together and sort of go through the struggle in the beginning together. And one of his friends was this, like I said, this kid from Compton, and we all went out one night, and for whatever reason, him and I didn't get into this club that we were going to. So we ended up, I think getting a 40-ounce of beer, and I think I had half a joint, and, we're young guys, and we just sat in a parking lot and talked and got to know each other and talked about our dreams and everything like that. And he said he wanted to be an actor, and he got up and did a monologue for me in the parking lot of the Great White Hope. And I just remember being blown away. And it wasn't because I was stoned. It was literally like, this guy is amazing. And it started a friendship. And like I tell people that, and that guy was Anthony Anderson. And it was literally like, we just have been friends ever since. I'll see him later this afternoon, and just a good human being, deserves all the success that he's had coming to him. And again, so, we always like, looked out for each other. Like I introduced him to people in the business, and then he would pull me in on jobs. There were so many great movies that he worked on, and he could come and we'll get you paid to do the dialogue or do a rewrite. And so, I got to have all these great adventures with him. We go to Vancouver and shoot Romeo Must Die, and, Kangaroo Jack. And it's like, we just, some of the stories from back then are just amazing because we're young guys and we're just running around the business trying to make it. And then, it led to us eventually doing his show all about the Andersons, which was my first TV experience. His really first, well, he had a Saturday morning show, which was great, and that he had done called Hang Time, which is also amazing. He was like his, at the time, college girlfriend, he got pregnant and they were going to have a baby. And he's like, I need a real job. I need to get an acting job. And, and it's like, I believed in him, but I was like, at the time I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 guys, and I was like, yeah, good luck with that. And within 2 weeks, he got Hang Time. I mean, talk about somebody who just wills himself and puts himself out there and makes stuff happen like no one I've ever seen before. So it's been a nice, long road. And again, to still have a friendship and still, have someone, it's a tough business. So not a lot of people and you depend on and is there and has your back. And I sort of feel like we feel the same way with each other. And then the group of people we built around us, which are all people successful in their own way and right. And some not as successful, who just have normal lives and jobs, which we always say grounds us. We have a lot of friends who are grips and, and more the blue collar part of the business too, which doesn't get enough recognition, and everybody talks about Hollywood. I'm always like, do you realize like 80% of Hollywood is like blue collar, hardworking, union people who are just trying to make a living for their family. It's like this town gets so blown out of proportion just on the A-list things. So people forget about the everyday workers, and we got to thank them, because without them, there would be no business here.
Yeah, and again, they work, talk about the hours that they work and all everything that they put in. We as actors sometimes complain about overnight shots. Really, nothing compared to what they're doing.
It's funny you say that. I mean, I was working on a show called Cold Case. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I always say this. And Catherine, why am I forgetting Catherine's last name? Who's the lead on Cold Case? I'll never forget. It was what we call Fraturday shoot. And Catherine Morris. And it must have been 2 a.m. And it was like close up of like the guest star of the week. It was like 14th person on the call sheet. And there's Catherine right off camera feeding him his lines. And I just remember thinking, wow, like that's what you want to see in a star. And just from the top to the bottom, what a generous actress. Like she could have went home. Somebody could have gave those lines. No, she wanted to be there for him. She believed that in the show that much. And that was like season 6, 7, like towards the end too. That wasn't like first few seasons of the show. So, to your point, my daughter's an actress, and I tell her all the time, like, be nice to the crew. Like if you love the crew, they'll take care of you and they'll love you. And like, they're the people working every day, and be polite, be thankful, and don't take any of it for granted or advantage,
Yeah. So, we jumped in a few places, but I want to follow up with something that you said about your daughter. So
my mind, by the way, so I apologize. I'm going to be like all over, bing, 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 all over the place.
I love it. That's what keeps it interesting. And by the way, for everybody who's watching, I keep forgetting to tell you that, but if you like this, please subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe.
Your daughter is an actress. So are you, again, from knowing the business inside out and knowing the good and the bad that comes with it, were you supportive of it, or you were cautious?
So my wife and I, we just had a rule. Growing up here in Los Angeles is really tough, because most of her friends were either of famous people and or they were on TV shows. So, first thing I used to say to my daughter all the time is we would drive to school and I'd say, remember, and she's like, I know I'm the poorest girl at my private school. Because I just wanted her to know, like, and I always tell my kids, we're not rich, we're well-to-do because I work. And if I don't work, we don't have money. So, there's differences in the things. So we decided early on that, you can do summer camps, school plays, you want some voice lessons, we'll do all those things, but no professional acting till you're 18. And if you want to go to college for it and that's what you want to do, then we got your back. And so I think when she was 12, she didn't like that very much, but I think she's very happy that we did that now, because we just wanted her to be a kid as long as she could be a kid, and enjoy just being a normal person as much as you can in Los Angeles. So that was really important to us. So she now goes to Berklee School of Music. She's a singer. She's loved to do musical theater. So she's still not in the game 100%. She's still in her training phase. But, yeah. So look, I'd be a hypocrite to say don't follow your dreams and do what you want to do. I know the good and the bad of it, but I have a lot of friends who are just really like not only great actors, but great human beings. Like I'm very close, obviously Anthony and Danny Pino is a good friend of mine, who I love. And it's just one of the best human beings I know in the world. Like you can have both. You don't have to be an actor or be in the business and be crazy. Like I think it's all relative, right? Like every business attracts all types of different people. So I think if you have a good foundation and it's really, about the art of the craft that you're doing, you're going to get not only great work, but you can have a really good career and good life. It's the other thing we talk about being a working actor. Not everybody has to be famous. I'm sure you've had that, like tons of working actors out there that, you don't know their name, but you see them. You're like, oh, I know you. You were on this and that. And I always say this, like one of the craziest moments I ever had was I was with Michael Rappaport. And we went to Vegas. You would have thought he was Brad Pitt because to the average American, he's been in every movie they love. I mean, he literally, we had to get, I've walked with Anthony through Vegas and we never had to have security. And me and Mike went to see a fight and literally we had to get a security guard to get him through the people because he was just getting mobbed. And this is before his podcast and all this. This is years ago. But, you look at his credentials and he's been in everything, his credits are just crazy. So again, and I would argue he's a character actor, but yet, people just flip out about it. And a lot of people don't know his name. They'll be like, oh, the guy from, True Romance or, it goes to show you, like, just what I tell my daughter all the time is it's not about being famous. It's about doing good work.
Yeah. And again, anybody getting into acting, if you're in the acting because you want to be famous, you're in the wrong business. You either love it and you have to do it, and that's the only thing that you can think of, and then do it. Otherwise, it's not for those.
I tell anybody in the arts, if I said to you, hey, Alan, besides acting, is there anything else? You'd be like, yeah, this, I said, quit acting. Like you either have to put yourself full in or don't do it. Cause it's too hard. It's too hard, and look, are there lucky people? Sure. I mean, and I say this with nothing but love because he's an amazing human being. But Jared Padalecki, from Supernatural, is walking through a mall, and this manager just happens to be in San Antonio, Texas, sees him and goes, "You should be an actor." And it's like, and that starts him on a career that, and so, but those stories are rare. I think one of his first 5 auditions was Gilmore Girls and he got it, it's like, but there was something there. The manager was right. Cause he's just, he's a great human being, amazing, and a really good actor. And, so everyone's journey is different too. So like, you can't, I always joke, my daughter is the hard worker. She's the overachiever. My son, the sun just shines wherever he walks, so my son could be that guy. My son could be like walking down Venice Beach and be like, hey, you should be in a movie. And then my daughter will like rip her hair out of her head because she's like, I've been trying to do that. It's like just different people, different lucks, different things, But I also say, look, it's not only, it's hard to get there. It's even harder to stay, and have a career and build a career. That's the thing I admire when I see someone and I'm like, even at this point in my career, I'm turning 52 in a few weeks. And it's like, I joke all the time that, when you see people that you knew from back in the day, it's almost like Survivor. You guys like hug each other and like, oh my God, we're still here. Like we made it, and again, a marathon, like, I want to do this till, as I joke with my kids, I'm going to be on my computer at 85 and like, just like, just be like, fade out.
Hopefully it's a lot later than that, and by that time you won't have to type. You'll just be talking to.
Be right in my brain.
Very cool. So let's jump back to kind of Cold Case, and then make our way to Supernatural, but touch upon the Marvel and DC before that. So you did the All About the Andersons. That was a year, and then you got was Criminal Minds or Cold Case the first one after that?
So actually, again, this is like one of those really interesting things. So the show got canceled with like, I think we were getting like a 2.9 on a Friday night at 9:30, which now would be like the biggest hit in the world. Yep. But on the WB, which like a year later was off the air. So it was like the whole thing was crazy. It was a real learning experience. Sitcoms are a very different business, but I had sort of got pigeonholed, right? And I remember after the show got canceled, I just had my second child, and a lot of times as writers, you have no choice. And I remember I got a call from the WB from Warner Brothers, it was Mike and Tracy Bacosta, and why am I forgetting Mike's name? But they called me and they said, listen, you were great in the room and we need writers for this room. And I remember hearing the idea and going, oh no, I don't want to do that. And my wife is like, you need a job. You need a gig. Like, we need money coming in.
Yep.
So I went and did blue collar TV, which is like, I always joke about, because it was, now, by the way, the Jeff Foxworthy, super nice guy. And, but the show wasn't really, for me, it wasn't really a fit. But I will say this, I remember we shot one episode in Athens. It was like the Beatles, man. It was just crazy. That following that they had was insane. So I did that for like only 6 months or 5.5 months, whatever the contract was. And then I was out, but it did look, financially, it was great. It helped. The residuals were great, totally thing. But at that point now, I'm pigeonholed. I'm a comedy guy. I'm a sitcom guy. I'm a variety show guy. I'm none of those things. Like, so all of a sudden, I'm finding myself struggling to reinvent myself. And I had this idea to write a script, and I'm going to try to tell the fast version of the story because it's pretty crazy. But I had to turn around and reinvent myself. So I had this idea, and I mean, money's running out. And I'm like looking at, I had just bought a house not a year earlier. I was doing about all the Andersons. I made every mistake you could make. Hey, I got a show, I'm buying a house. It's like, I had another kid. It was like, all these things. So I'm now like figuring out how to sort of just not just survive, but like keep sure I don't lose everything. And the strike happened. Two things had happened. The strike had happened. And, for the first time ever, I was, I always say this, like, there's always opportunity. I'm like, I would have been a great person during a war. Like, I would have been like a war profiteer. I would have figured out a way to make money. Like, what do you need? Toilets? I got toilets. It's the chutzpah in me, so the hustle, as we keep saying. So I was on the strike line with, all the writers. And I think I had just joined the guild 2 years earlier. And it was the big strike. I was at 2009, I think, or 2010. I can't remember. 2008. And I turned around, and all of a sudden I was in line with walking every day with showrunners and walking with EPs and other writers and having lunches afterwards and getting to know them in a way I never could have through agents and meetings and all that stuff, really getting to know people in a real way. Same time, I wrote a script that changed my life. And I always say this, like, I've written 3 scripts that changed my life. I never sold any of them for big money. Millions, but those scripts not only changed the perception of me, but got me next 5 years of work. So this was one of them. I wrote a script, and basically, I'm not going to tell you the what it was about, but I'll tell you that the idea was like, it was King Lear. It's about a guy who's losing his kingdom, and who does he leave his kingdom to? And he turns around, and I write it. And my agent at the time, Nancy Josen, calls me and says, this is going to change your life. Called me on a Sunday. I just read it. It's amazing. There's nothing like it out on TV. Like, she's like, and I'm like, that's awesome. Like, my wife is dancing a jig in the living room because, like, this is going to change our lives. And she's like, I'm going to bring it up to, the writer, the agencies on Mondays have their big meetings. So she gave it to everybody. She was the head of the television department. She gave it to everybody. And she literally called me that afternoon and said, we have an 800-pound gorilla who is going to want to direct this. And this is amazing. And this is going to be amazing. And Tuesday, I talked to his producing partner, who was Australian. He's like, mate, I love it. It's amazing. We're going to go sell this. Like, can you meet with him on Thursday in Malibu? Absolutely, 100%. And then Wednesday night, my big break opportunity chance, and a guy who had a 25-year career that nothing ever happened. The day before I meet him, he gets arrested for drunk driving and anti-Semitic remarks, Mel Gibson.
Oh my God.
So of course I'm like, I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, that this happened. And it was, I'm so torn. I loved him as an actor. And I feel like I still think he's like a super talented director, but obviously didn't like what he had to say. But so that was dead. And then I get a call, AMC wants to buy it, right? So I'm like, okay, awesome. So I go, and they love it. They believe in it. A couple of small fixes, and then they want to order it to series. And I'm just like, this is unbelievable. This is exactly everything I dreamed of. And then I get a call, and they're like, hey, so we just bought another show where the lead character is dying.
Don't tell me.
And then they said, can you change your guy dying? I said, no, that's the whole premise of my show is my guy's dying. They're like, yeah, it's a little show Breaking Bad that we bought and everything like that. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. And so I changed it. Of course, the whole thing goes in the toilet. And then a year later, basically the same premise comes out on FX, Sons of Anarchy. So my show is about a motorcycle gang and a lead guy, a motorcycle leader, and he's dying. And who does he leave the kingdom of motorcycle gang to? Organized crime thing. So again, like just, those things in life. But people started reading that script and they literally, like, I had more meetings, more stuff. And so when the strike was over, I had like 3 offers to go work on 1-hour dramas. But, Bella Bajara, who now is at Netflix and ran NBC Universal, she was just at the time a young creative executive. She really believed in me and she really pushed me and loved that script and really helped me sort of get out there and make my bones. So that changed my life and my career. One other quick side story. Around this 2 years, 3 years earlier, when I was doing features, and that business changed. I used to go sell 2, 3, 4 pitches a year, and make really great money. And, especially a kid who didn't come from it. I remember going and like showing my friends my like balance and my ATM. They're like, oh my God, you got $70,000. It was like big shit. I was like, yeah, and I started renting a house up in the hills and all my friends came with me. It was sort of like, it was like entourage, and we were, all struggling and everything. And I was the first one to sort of start making money and sort of, so everybody would come up and hang out. But I had a friend, again, this is just one of those like Hollywood stories. I had a friend who at the time was a line producer and I was in New York and she said, you should come out to Silver Cup Studios and you should see my boss, say hi, I think you two would hit it off. I meet this guy, he's a showrunner and he's telling me about his show. And honestly, twofold. One, I didn't really understand the whole concept of the show. And then he's like, here, I have this script. I could use someone like you in my writer's room. You have a young energy, you're different, New York, the world a little bit. So he gave me a script. It was like episode 4. Had I read the pilot, maybe I would have felt completely different. And I read it on the train going in and I'm lost. I'm like, this guy's haunted by someone he killed and the guy's like haunting him and his uncle is like, and I'm just like, and I remember getting off on 59th Street and literally throwing it in the garbage and going, nah, I'm a feature guy. I don't need it. And that show was The Sopranos.
Yep.
And David Chase literally said to me, so again, like having no perspective, having no idea, but also just being young and cocky and thinking, oh, nothing. I'm a feature guy. It's like, it would change my whole life, career. So again, it's like, those are 2 stories of like, just the way things happen and the way story and just, both from a writing perspective and also just having, taking a moment. I would say that would be my sort of thing. Take a moment. Because you never know, like, I've heard actors like, I'm not doing a slasher horror movie. Really? You want me to tell you how many people like became famous from doing slasher horror movies as their first movie? Like Jamie Lee Curtis and, it's like, Johnny Depp and, it's like the list goes on and on and on. It's like, when I hear an actor say that, I'm like, take every part, like make it great. Don't be afraid. Work.
Yeah, same thing with short. I mean, again, you started making short films. How many people start out making short films? Right now, there are people in Hollywood that are making short films, and they're very well-known people. That's just because they're doing it. It's their creative outlet, or they have a story to tell. Do short films. Don't be an idiot.
100 times. I tell my daughter though all the time. She's like, I'm like, do college films. You're in Boston. There are a million film schools there, and a million things going on. Go do college films. Because you'll never know. You might meet Scorsese. I mean, you think like, you always hear these stories, and it's like, and they're all talking, and De Niro and him met when he was doing this, short film at NYU. It's like, you're like, oh my God, all these people, like, and that is a very, at least when I was growing up, very New York thing. Cause like, I did meet a lot of people on the way up through that thing, and, and just different actors and different people, and some are still working. And I went to school with Stephen Adly Gagaris, who, is Pulitzer Prize winning, author, and he started with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and him started the Labyrinth Theater. Like, you just met people along the way, that you don't have any idea. You're just people. Like, you're not thinking, oh, you're going to be famous someday, or you're going to be this, or you're going to be that. But again, I tell people all the time, just say yes. Be positive. Do it. What do you got to lose? Figure it out.
Yeah. All right. So I want to get to DC and Marvel, because I think that's such an interesting detour. I know you kind of grew up and comics were a part of you growing up, and then you had a chance to write, and you have a ton of writing that you've done, and Deadpool is probably still my favorite Marvel character of all time. So you had a chance to do Deadpool and Teen Titans and Suicide Squad and all sorts of things. So you kind of jump between DC and Marvel. How did that come about?
Again, go back to walking the lines at the strike. And I started
Mhm.
talking to another writer named Mike Benson. At the
Mhm.
time was writing Deadpool Suicide Kings. And, he's a good writer, but struggling with some ideas. We just started spitballing in line. And he said, you want to write it with me? And I was like, are you serious? So I always give Mike a lot of credit for breaking me in and helping me get into the business. And then, we did a couple of books together. That book became a New York Times bestseller. And then we did Luke Cage Noir, which to me is like my favorite book I ever wrote. Sean Martinborough's art is unbelievable. We did another Deadpool. Which Deadpool did we did? We did why am I forgetting? Deadpool Pulp, which was also awesome.
Yep.
And then, like anything, I found for me, I love a writer's room, but when it comes to actually writing, I like to write on my own. So, eventually went on my own. And then what happened with that was I was actually, and, we were going to get to this too. At that point I had moved on from, I did 2 years on that show, The Cleaner, where I learned a lot with Ben Ben was just a great actor, and just Robert Munich and Jonathan Prince, who ran the show. Like they just, instantly I found myself in the writer's room, sort of running the room. I had a good story sense. I had a good sense of working the board. I was what you call board rat. I could jump on and start to do stuff. But I would say then I got into Cold Case, and Cold Case was because of two guys, Greg Plageman and Elwood Reed, who I've worked with Elwood a ton since then. They knew me socially and like, we need someone like you in the room. And that's where, man, things really became super professional. I always tell people the best storytellers in the world, and the people like every show, like people, get some people who have procedural background, because they all day long, all they do is break story. I mean, it's the best thing for the craft. And if you like me and a couple other people I know, my number two on my show now, Chris Barber, also comes from this world. It's like you can just get on boards all day, and it almost becomes like Beautiful Mind. You could be like this and be like, okay, second act needs that, third act, because you're just every day pounding, 22, 23, 24 episodes a year, 3, 4, 5 years of doing that just gives you like this unbelievable thing. Erica Anderson, who works for me now, she also comes from that background. Same thing. I just stick her in a room with a bunch of writers and a board, and I know she's going to give me a story that puts it on the green, because she has that background. So when I got over to Cold Case, it was an amazing experience. A great team of people, great actors. I felt like a family making those shows. I think what separated that show from everybody else was that there was this emotional thing to every episode. It was about the people and about finding out who that person was. And it, I super loved that show. But when that show was over, I think the job everybody wanted was because I remember us all sitting around the writers' room, was everyone heard that Supernatural, who had not opened their room looking for anybody in the first 5 seasons. And they finally were going to open it up. So that was like everybody going, that's a tough job. And I had known the show. I watched the first 2 seasons and had loved it. Like I just loved the boys. And, to me, it was like, boys riding around America in a car, muscle cars solving, crimes and, supernatural things. I just thought the actors were great and everything like that. So one of the things, again, where you talk about the hustle, I just decided, I was like, I'm getting this job. Like, I don't care if 200 people are up for it. I'm getting it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to outpitch everybody, because I luckily have that gear where I'm just a machine guy, an idea guy. I can just give you, I can sit there and like I always say in the writer's room, like, I'm just going to deal cards. I'm the dealer. It's like, what do you want? You want aces? You want this? I'll give you 30 ways we can do this. So I never forget, I went in with Eric Kripke and Sarah Gamble and Bob Singer, who, were the 3 main people to show. And I just started pitching away. And as I was pitching, Eric, who's a tough audience, was like, oh, we're doing that one. And then I was like, I pitched another one. He's like, well, we're doing that one, and I remember walking out and they're like, he never says that in a meeting. So I ended up getting a job, And then it was a whole other learning curve, because they did things very differently. And you broke stories individually. The room was not as big. It was more about what you did with the showrunner one-on-one. And I learned a lot from Eric. Eric was just, he's got the boys now. He's just a brilliant mind and just an amazing writer. And is to just sit at his feet and learn some of this stuff. It was amazing. And what's funny is he's a comic book geek, so he would like I'm geeking on him, and then he would geek on. He's like, "Can you get this Suicide Squad sign for me?" Mm-hmm. So it was like an interesting thing. But then what happened was I was at Comic-Con because I went every year anyway, and would always go around. And it's interesting. Marvel stuff was sort of low key in a weird way. It was like I'm trying to put this in words, like it's not as big. The stuff I was doing was just sort of smaller and not as big a fanfare. So, nobody knew who I was. And I was actually over at the DC booth talking to a friend of mine. And I always forget Matt's name, which is terrible because I owe the guy a lot. He said to me, "Hey man, I really loved your Deadpool Pope, and I loved the Cage Noir. And, Matt Keller, I think it is. I think he's in marketing." And he's like, "Why aren't you writing for us?" And I said, "That's a good question because I don't know anybody." And he's like, because he also was a huge Supernatural fan. And, so he said, "Well, Dan Didio, who's the president, is him and his, at the time, girlfriend, who's now his wife, Leia, they're huge Supernatural fans." So he introduced me to Dan, and we started talking, and Dan says, "Well, give me your number," and anything like that. So I remember getting a call. Me and my son were actually, it's Christmas time. We're going into a comic book shop, and I get a call, and it's like, it's Dan Didio and Jim Lee. And I literally was like, I think I hung up the first time because I thought it was one of my buddies messing with me. And then they called back and they were like, something happened in the line. I realized it was them. And I was like, I'm a giant Jim Lee fan. I've been reading comics. I go back to his Claremont X-Men, I just giant fan. And they just started talking about different things and different ideas. And so I did a couple of one shots for them. I did a JLA 80, I think, issue. And I did basically Dante's Inferno. So, I brought a little supernatural element to it. And then they called me and asked me if I would do this Legion of Doom thing. And then only to find out later it was going to be a Flashpoint series and that it would not have any of the stars of Legion of Doom in it. And all of a sudden, by the way, the other side of it is I was doing DC, and then I was almost like a precious flower in comics. I had turned around and literally everybody just praised everything I did. And all of a sudden I went to DC and people were like, F you, Adam Glass. And I was like, oh my God. I thought my career was over in comics. And by the way, I did comics while I was doing TV. So it's not like I ever left TV. It was like my side hustle I was doing. And I found out a lot of interesting stuff. It was like, it's a very closed community. They're very close. They don't like outsiders. So to them, I was taking money out of their pocket, which I totally understood. So it was like I never was embraced by that community. And I always feel like almost every review of mine is always like Hollywood writer Adam Glass, which is this big FU, So it was like this weird thing. And so when they came to me about the New 52, which I didn't know was going to be the New 52, they asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, I don't see Suicide Squad on this list. They're like, oh, well, we're not sure. And I said, I grew up and I love John Ostrander, who, I thought was just God when I was a kid, and loved those books, and him and Marv Wolfman and George Perez with Teen Titans. Those were really my big books as a kid. So I said, I want to do it, but I'd like to bring Harley Quinn in. And they were like, no, Harley's off limits. You can't touch Harley. I'm like, what are you doing with Harley? Harley's really and I remember fighting. At the time, Pat McCallum, who was my editor, I said, I only want to do this book. I said, I feel like Harley should be in the Suicide Squad. And I gave them all the reasons why. And really, because they kept saying, put things, for me, they kept saying, it was a logic bump for me. And also they kept saying, make things more real. And I was like, okay. So if you're the psychiatrist of a hospital and you fall in love and have a relationship with one of your patients, and then they commit you, they're not going to keep you in the same place. They're going to move you to another facility, which to me was Belle Rev, which would then get her into Suicide Squad. Plus, I just wanted to see her solo. It's interesting, again, comics are so I see a lot of these things that other people take credit for. And I'm like, no, that was me, or that was, the guys who created her. I kept saying it's the Lauryn Hill album. It's the Emancipation of Harley Quinn, which they used actually in the title, which was the name of one of my books. And I just wanted to see Harley on her own. I didn't like the abusive relationship she was in. That was the part of it that never really fit with me, even when I would watch the animated series. So I really wanted to see who Harley could be on her own. And it was a guy, Mike Martz, who was the editor at the time there for DC, for the Batman line, who fought for it and got her for me. And then, like they say, the rest is history. The book took off and did great, and people loved it, and obviously led to the movie franchise and all that stuff, and which I don't get a penny for. So when you work as a gun for hire for those shows, for those things, they own everything, so it doesn't matter. But that led, so there's a long way of saying, if it wasn't for Supernatural, and people being such fans of that show, which that fan base, the Supernatural family, is amazing. They've been so great to me and to all the writers on the show. We wouldn't be here. So, the comic books, I always like to say, because a lot of comic book guys are guys who get into movie and TV. I'm a movie and TV guy who got into comic books and did it for the love, because I didn't need the money, and I don't say that in a cocky way. I say it more in a those checks weren't what was driving me. What was driving me is like, I have this passion from being a kid. And then a few years later, when they asked me to do Teen Titans, I said, not only will I do it, but I remember telling my wife, like, I'm going to do it, and then I'm probably done, because then I sort of fulfilled my childhood dreams. I wrote the 2 books I dreamt of writing, and I'll keep doing independent books, but the odds that I'll do another DC or Marvel are slim to none, because I just feel like and there are people who need the money and do need to make those careers and stuff like that. So I don't want to, I've put my footprint on those 2 titles, and I'm glad I did it. So tons of love for that.
Unbelievable. Let's talk about in from the cold. Excuse me for mispronouncing it. How is that doing? Again, another Russian connection with Margarita.
Yeah, with Margarita. Well, one quick thing, because you had asked me this earlier. After I left Supernatural after 5 seasons, I really was like, I'd run writers' rooms, I had done all these different things, but I wanted to really run my own show. And at the time, I had gotten some offers. I had kept turning them down, and I finally got a call from Glenn Geller, who at the time was president of CBS, and I'd known and had helped me early in my career and was really good to me. I said, look, I want to either co-run a show or run a show. And he said, do you know who Erica Messer is? And I said, I don't know who Erica Messer is. And she had been running Criminal Minds, and she had a spinoff called Criminal Minds Beyond Borders, and needed help with it. And, these meetings, usually you go and you meet for half hour, 45 minutes. I think we met for 5 hours. Like, we just one of the nicest, greatest, super talented people in the world. And she said, listen, you'll be a real partner in this with me, and it's Gary Sinise, and it was like, and we'll do this. So I went, and first season we were there hand in hand. Second season, she gave me the keys to the car, let me drive it more, and she really helped give me a big break. So I own a ton to Erica, and Gary was a great partner and all that stuff. So after that, I got a call from Fox 21, actually, again, these business, like an old executive who I knew, who was a friend, who was over there. And Elwood Reed, from back in my cold case days, they needed someone to come in and run the writer's room on The Chi first season. Yep. And so, I went over there and I met Lena Waithe, and, we all decided to do the show together, and I did that the first season. And then I went and did a show called Barkskins for them. And just nothing but love for all those people in that family. But, wanted my own show. And basically I get a call, and again, this is just to show you how the business works, right? Yeah. I get a call from a guy that I knew back all the way to my first drama back like 12 years ago on The Cleaner. And he was the assistant to the showrunner.
Okay.
And we had kept in touch on Facebook, every once in a while checking in. And back in the day, he'd give me scripts to read, and I'd give him notes or thoughts, and he never forgot that. He said to me, you're one of the few people who did it. Like, you always treated me like an equal no matter what. And since then, he had done really well, and he had become, I don't even know what the official title is, because Netflix had such a different way of ranking, but he became he's producing shows for Netflix, was an executive there. And he called me actually to ask me about another writer, about Andrew Dabb, who's the showrunner of Supernatural right now. And then he said something to me like, well, I know you're busy and all, and, you probably don't do general meetings. And I said, are you kidding me? Of course I'll come in and do a general meeting with you, And I went in and I pitched them some ideas, and they loved one of them. Said, do you have some stuff on that. And it was funny. I had 7 ideas in my back pocket because I sort of like, you're almost like a gunslinger when you get to my age. It's like, I got this, I can give you this. I got, I know what I got. So I was talking to them and I said, what are you looking for? And I figured out with what they're looking for, here's something I got. Yeah. And it's also the reason I pitched it was the best thing I knew to pitch. I knew I had the best opening and hook. So, and I pitch it like no one's business. So I pitched it to them and it was in from the cold teaser. And then it moved really fast, like so fast that I was sort of like not believing it was happening because Netflix just works so differently. Mm-hmm. So I was able to sort of move really quickly and get the show going. And that young man's name was Pete Corona, along with his boss, Chris Regina. And before I knew it, they ordered a room and we were writing episodes and I got to pick all the writers I loved that I wanted to work with for a long time and filled my room with some interesting people. I actually got a writer from Russia, Anya Mesnik, who, yes, she was amazing. She's great. She's about to have a baby, Anya. Good luck. She's from Moscow. She came here when she was 8 or 9. Jewish refugee, had to get out of there. I had, Erica Anderson, I mentioned, Chris Barber. I had a wonderful writer named Gaia Viola from Sicily. So it was really just a great, great staff of people that I was able to put together. And we went to Spain. I prepped for 8 weeks. We were 5 days from shooting and the coronavirus hit. And yeah, by the way, I had 3 Russian actresses on the stage on there. So it's funny to sort of spend so much time between Margarita and Ivana I can never say her last name right. Senko. And then another actress whose name I can't pronounce. I apologize. But it was fascinating to go out and have meals and talk. And some of it did remind me of my bubby and sort of, and it was interesting to just sort of be around the culture because I had not been around it in a long time.
That's very cool. So hopefully, that's going to pick up again at some point in the near future.
That's everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's on pause. So nobody knows what's going to happen until this all, moves in another direction. But right now, I think I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone's shooting anything until next spring.
I hear different things, and again, best laid plans can go to waste. But what I hear is some of my Canadian friends are starting to shoot in September. Some things in New York, I heard, are going to start in September. In Chicago, I think one of the Dick Wolf shows, if not, a number of them are going to start back in September. So there's...
We'll see.
Huh?
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. We'll find out.
We'll find out. I hope so, but I have doubts. I know a lot of people's shows are getting pushed and they just haven't announced them yet.
Okay, I get you. Well, again, the goal is for everybody to be safe and to get to the other side of this, and then we can pick
out. And the actors are the biggest ones. They're the ones who have the most exposure. We have to protect them.
Yeah,
I can wear a mask all day. An actor can't.
That's true. Okay, so you've mentioned that in my prep, I've heard you mention a few times that writers and actors have a lot in common. For the actors out there, can you please explain how that is? Because I feel that, and I've always felt that, but I want to hear from you.
Well, think about it, right? We're constantly critiqued. We're constantly putting ourselves out there. Maybe you're going to read my script or you're going to see my audition. So we're constantly having to put ourselves, out to be criticized. And that's not for everybody. It's really hard. It takes a thick skin. It takes time to build that skin. As I've spoken this in your acting things. If you only knew actors, you'd pull your hair out of your head how sometimes things are decided or how things go down, because the truth is it's 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 always. I've seen literally horse trading. I've seen flips of coins. I've seen you're the best actor, but you're taller than the main actor. You're, we already have a blonde. We already, anything like that. It's like, it's insanity. If the best person won the job all the time, so I always tell this to my daughter, tell this to any actor, just leave it there. Just put it, do your best, leave it on the field, walk away, and that's all you're in control of, and everything else is just going to be a matter of fate. With that said, it's that, right? I mean, you always hear this, and people are always like, "Well, what is it?" Like, they'll say somebody has that it thing, they just have that thing. Like when I saw Ivana's Senko's audition. She just blew everybody out of the water, and she plays Margarita, young Margarita. And there was to me, there was no one else even close. Like she just had it. And she made these really interesting decisions. Like it was actually, I joked with her, it was like a little Brando-esque. She started eating nuts at one point and, doing these things, but she just was unbelievable. So there are times when people just come in and have the it, or they own it, or sometimes just timing when you come in on the audition. I almost say this, like it's a catch-22 because people come in early and they're great, but then you're just trying to beat them the whole time. And then there are people who come in who don't have, how do I say this? Who are so good, everyone else you can't compare them to. And then there's the person who's like, we can't find them, and we've been looking for months, and they come in and we're like, we're just ready to settle. Okay. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like, it's like musical chairs. The music stopped. We need someone. We're about to shoot. Were they the best person? Maybe not, but the timing was good for them, So, man, so that's where we're very similar. I think we're always putting ourselves out there. We're always creating. And as a writer, I'm always acting out the parts as I write them. I'm like always hearing the voice and saying it out loud and keeping sure the dialogue sounds good, and using people that I know in my life, as prototypes and writing it so I can get the voice down in the dialogue and all that.
Perfect. All right, we're at our newest segment, which is the we call it the actor lightning round, but for you it's going to be the writer, the showrunner lightning round. You've been on a ton of projects, obviously. What's if you had to pick one favorite, which one would it be?
Oh, you mean out of all the shows I've been on?
Yeah.
For right now, I'd have to still say it's Supernatural. I mean, I just think we were able to do, what I love about that show is you're able to do so many different kinds of stories. You can make social commentary. You can, you can do a horror thing. You do a comedy version. The versatility of that show. I also wrote 16, 17 episodes of it. I mean, I wrote a lot of episodes of it. I got to explore so many different things, and do, like I said, and also put my own life into it and then find ways through it. The show was just so rich and deep. It's why it's gone 15 seasons. It's just, it's an absolutely amazing show. And I joke, I said, I got to make something or do something bigger or else my obituary will be Supernatural writer out of class. Not so bad. Not such a bad contribution to the world.
Not so bad at all.
I'm glad I could be a small contributor to that big whole thing.
What's the weirdest thing that ever happened to anybody on set or to you on a set?
The weirdest thing that ever happened to me. Oh boy, she sent me that question earlier. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like what's the weirdest thing that ever happened to me?
The first that comes to mind.
I got yelled at once by James Woods for parking in his parking spot, and I was on set, and all of a sudden James Woods just walked. Like, oh, that's fine. And I'm like, and then I was like, oh, I think that's me, and I didn't realize that because it was right next to our stages and our things, and I didn't realize the sign had been changed. So getting screamed at by James Woods is definitely a weird thing that happened to me on set.
Yeah, I think so. Out of all of the actors, and again, everybody wants to compare, right? But out of all of the actors that I've ever been compared to, in terms of look, the one that I hear more frequently than other is James Woods. So for some reason,
really?
I look like James Woods. I don't think so, but that's what they see.
I don't see James Woods, but yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Neither do I. But now that you said
the Jewish James Woods,
apparently so. So there you go. And now that you've mentioned that he yelled at you, maybe I shouldn't have brought it up. So
I'm having trauma. Oh no.
Who's the best actor that you ever got a chance with? I know you've mentioned Gary, who's incredible, but who would you say is the best actor from pure acting stuff?
Again, it's crazy. He doesn't get enough credit, but Jensen Ackles, who plays Dean Winchester, can do everything. He can do comedy. He can do drama. He can bring the emotion. And I mean, I was just always blown away. I believe after Supernatural, he could have a very big career. I just think he's a bigger star than people realize. But I got to tell you, man, I also had the pleasure of working on The Chi with some unbelievable actors. I mean, we just had so many amazing people on that show that I just thought, again, Jason Lattimore, who I just think's a star, Chris Lee, who now is, he came in and did a bunch of stuff for us. Chris Deshawn Lee, who's just an amazing actor. There's so many people on that. Stephen Williamson, Williams, who I've worked with a ton of times, who's just a great actor. I worked with him on both Supernatural and on that show, on The Chi. So he's great. yeah, man, there's so many. I love actors, so like I collect them and I like them. And if I sort of like what Peck and Paul and those and John Ford used to do. They used to have sort of their crew of actors they went to,
Yeah,
and always sort of brought in on stuff. And again, by the way, I keep going. I mean, Danny Pino, just Money in the Bank. That guy can do anything. There's nothing he can do. Jeremy Ratchford, who, played on Cold Case, he's a good actor. I've brought him in to do other character stuff for me. He's a super good actor. I don't think people realize what a great actor Anthony Anderson is. I think Anthony, once this show's over, will show, people forget, he was on The Shield and did an amazing job on that. So, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great actors that I love. Jim Beaver, who I just love, great character actor, plays Bobby on Supernatural, but also, was in Deadwood and, did a ton of things. Like Jim's just an amazing actor. So Kim Rhodes, who, again, another great character actress who I've used over and over again. So, I'm just really blown away. I feel like I've worked with a lot of great people.
perfect. Thank you. Those are some amazing, amazing names. I know you've obviously written for a good number of shows, but is there one show or a feature out there that you wished you were the writer on?
Oh, I always say, yeah, it's so funny you say that. I mean, like right now I look at Ozarks and I'm just like, oh my God, I wish I created that show. I wish I wrote that show. Like, it's so me, so right down. And Laura Lindley is amazing. And I just always have loved her. And I think Bateman's a great actor and director. I mean, he directs a lot of those episodes, and I think he's just amazing. Yeah, I love that show through and through. And I had been circling doing a show about laundering money, but their show's much better than my show. Like, that's another thing too, because usually you go, like, even with my motorcycle, I'm like, oh, my show is better than Sons of Anarchy. It's like I can't say that about this. This Ozarks is I think right now one of the top 3 shows on television.
Very cool. What's one thing most people do not know about you?
What is one thing that most people don't know about me? And I think you collect a reputation when you're younger. I'm pretty much a homebody at this point in my life. I like to have people over. I have a little what I call I have 2 rocking chairs out on my deck, and I like to have cigars and drinks and scotches, and I just have just close friends and people whose minds just have deep conversations. So, also just things like that. Just really, I'm not a very outgoing person, though my personality would argue that I am.
Gotcha. And then lastly, if you had a chance to talk to a younger version of yourself and you had a chance to give one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Slow down. Like, I mean, listen, the hustle is what got me here. But again, like I was telling that story earlier, it was like there were times where I think I just didn't have the bandwidth or the deepness to sort of say, okay, look at every opportunity for what it is. I was so quick to make decisions, which both helped me, but also I think at times hurt me. Have patience, just, and don't be so quick. You don't know everything. Like, again, imagine if I'd been on the first season of The Sopranos, maybe I got fired, but even so, have that on my resume would have really changed things up, so, but you also can't, that's just life, Yeah. It's like, you just have to take it for what it is. But yeah, yeah, I think that's what I'd say to myself and everything. It's an interesting question. What would you say to yourself, Alan?
To myself, really pursue acting, because I came here at 14 and I acted as a kid, so I thought acting was going to be my thing. And then I came here, and my parents came here, like you came to LA. My parents were 52 and they came here with $300 in their pockets to begin a new life. And for me to become an actor, for them was no. We came here for you so you can have a career and a normal job. And I always struggled with that, and I kept on trying to find what I could do. And I tried IT, and I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I was a very good tennis player, so I thought, okay, I'm going to be a tennis pro. But with all of these things, and I'm blessed with different abilities, but if you don't focus enough time on any one of them, nothing is going to happen. And I kept on finding myself in that cycle. And then I started an IT business. The first one failed. The second one was a certain level of success. And I kept not feeling fulfilled in myself until later in life, probably I think when I was 41. I said, that's it. I can't. I have to do acting because that's who I am. And when I allowed myself to do that, when I allowed myself to go on audition and do student films and do indies and shorts, that's when I felt complete. So I still do IT because acting doesn't pay right now, but I still do IT. And now I started the show. And as long as my world is allowing me to be filled with acting and ability to talk to people like yourselves who are in the business, that makes me whole, and then it makes me tolerate everything else around my life. So the one advice that I would have told myself is stop screwing around, just focus on acting and give it a real shot, because I think I have something. Whether any of it is going to come out in the future, who knows, but that's what I would have told myself.
Well, I'll say this too, and I told my daughter this just recently, and I think you hit on a very important thing to everybody in life, and this is more of a life lesson than anything. Live your life for yourself. Like, I don't want my children living their life for me. I get your parents made a different sacrifice and all that stuff and moving, and I understand what they did, but you got to live for you. It's your life, and your parents, they love you. They'll eventually be happy for you no matter what you do.
I think so. They'll be proud, but they're just they're worried. They're old fashioned. So these discussions don't usually go well.
I told my grandmother I was coming to LA and I didn't know anybody. Forget about it. One quick funny last story. She called me once. I'll never forget. I'd been out here for 3-4 years. She said, I had a great idea. Okay. She was living in West Palm Beach. Selma Simonovitz, right? My bubby. She says, I have a great idea, Adam. She says, I was watching Steven Spielberg's Mother on TV this morning. Why don't you call him, tell him you're Jewish, and go have a meeting with him? And I said, it doesn't work that way, Bubby. Said, how do you know? How do you know? He's very Jewish. His mother is, and she believed like I was an idiot for not. Imagine that, by the way. Adam Glass for Steven Spielberg, Jew, and they go, oh, come in. like some loxes or some, we have some spread, smell to come in. Like she really believed it worked that way. And by the way, back in New York in the 40s and 50s, I'm sure it did work that way, but not in Hollywood.
No,
I never got a job because I was a Jew. Let's put it that way. I know people that might surprise everybody out there in America, but it's never worked that way for me. In fact, I joke all the time. My agent, my manager, and my lawyer are not Jewish.
Really?
Yeah. See, even Alan can't believe it. I'm like, yeah. What happened? I missed it. I'm 20 years too late.
Wow. My wife's family, one of their kind of names is Spielberg. So my wife's grandmother was investigating whether Steven is actually a part of the family, and whether we should contact him and say, hey, we're here. This is what we're doing. But that never happened. So Steven, if you're listening, we have 2 Jewish people that want to talk to you right here, and Adam and myself. Perfect. Adam, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time, coming on and sharing your life. It inspired me to continue writing. I'm a writer, and I've been so busy with everything else that I put that aside and I haven't written, and I miss it. I need to go and start writing, and you've inspired me just by doing the research on you.
All right, brother. Well, keep writing, and best of luck to everybody out there. And, it is the old saying, and I know it sounds cheesy, but just follow your dreams and just, don't give up and keep pushing, because you'll still end up higher than you would have if you didn't try, and you never know what's out there for you. So keep going. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Like, comment, tell us what you think, and please follow Adam's work. Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye.